I'm Dr. Scott Lyons, and you're watching or listening to The Gently Used Human. Have you ever bolted awake from a dream so vivid you had to pinch yourself back to reality? Or found yourself haunted by a dream so bizarre you're convinced your subconscious is trying to tell you something? What is it about these nighttime escapades that can feel so real, so intense, and sometimes so utterly perplexing? Are these dreams merely our brain's nightly cleanup crew at work, or do they tap into something deeper, like a universal thread weaving through the collective unconscious? Well, in today's episode, I am joined by Dr. Michael Lennox, a psychologist and dream expert whose insights into the nocturnal mind are as enlightening as they are fascinating. Together, we'll decode the functionality of dreams, venture into the realm of the collective unconscious, and reveal how our dreams can be a powerful tool for personal growth, healing, and creativity. From the eeriness of precognitive dreams to the empowerment of lucid dreaming, we're unpacking the mysteries of what happens when we close our eyes at night. This episode is your invitation to discover the transformative power of your dreams and how they can illuminate the darkest and most mysterious parts of your inner world. Let's dive in. Michael, welcome to The Gently Used Human. It is such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here. We're
gonna have a great time. Has anyone ever told you that you are dreamy?
Maybe.
Oh my goodness! I've been so excited to say that to you all day because today, my dear friends, we are going into the depths of dreamland and unpacking everything about dreams with Michael, and I am so ecstatic to do that with you. You are like the dream dude. You are the person we come to uncover what the fuck is going on in our dreams. You know, I have a query for a friend. This friend doesn't actually remember or quote unquote have dreams. Are they dead inside?
No, I don't. I think it's interesting that you even use that word dead inside, because the truth is, if they weren't dreaming, they would be dead on the outside.
Right?
Yeah. There's so much going on in the brain during REM sleep, which is when we're having those vivid dreams, that also has to do with brain health.
Yeah.
Right? We're clearing out metabolic waste, which the brain can't do the way the body does. And it's like, if you didn't go through that process of forming short-term memory, getting rid of the extra data that you've collected all day, and getting rid of, cells, all cells poop, including brain cells, right?
It's my favorite book.
We're dreaming, we're cleaning.
All cells poop.
We're cleaning out the brain. So yes, your friend, air quotes,
is a vampire. Thank you for confirming what I always believed.
There you go. That's the ticket. No, everybody dreams because there's incredible function that's happening, that we also have the artifact of, I think, opening up to our universal mind and all of the beautiful things that can happen when the rational mind is asleep.
I love that. Let's dive deeper into what is a dream, and even more why do we dream? And I love that you're talking about the functionality of them. So let's dive in.
Yeah, let's start with that, because we do know so much more than we did just in the last couple of decades. Neuroscience has exploded in its understanding of how the brain works. So let's talk about function first, right? So let's talk about this brain clearing out the poop, flushing the toilet in the brain, right? So we have these brilliant lymphatic systems in our bodies that take the crap in our blood, extracts it, and then processes the stuff that's in our blood that needs to go away. That's the lymphatic system. Well, the brain is locked in this place up in our skull. We have this thing called the blood-brain barrier because it needs to be protected. It can't be in the same sort of environment as the rest of the body. So in order for the brain to release the metabolic waste, it has to go through this weird process that happens in REM sleep. The cells in the brain change shape. The fluid of the brain stem, sort of fills all of the space in. And when those cells sort of stretch back into their regular shape, all of that poop goes into the cerebral spinal fluid, which then sort of falls down and goes through the blood-brain barrier, taken away by the lymphatic system. So if we weren't clearing out the brain would just be toxic and we would cease to function.
Okay. So draw me the line between my brain is pooping, the cells of my brain is pooping, and then the images of me on a cliff and I am peeing myself, which is different than what my brain is doing, which is pooping itself.
That's right.
Yeah, talk me through that.
On a cliff, you're having a high vantage point. You're like in your hop consciousness, sort of looking out at what's possible, but there's some toxicity that you need to release, whether you're ready for that or not. That would be my interpretation of that dream image. But let's talk about the other functionality in dreams before we get to the mystery piece, because this will explain why so many dreams refer to the day that you've had, and why lots of people will then dismiss dreams by saying, you're just processing random data from the day, because you are, in fact, processing random data from the day. So just think about it as like a computer. We were talking before we started about the resource-heavy program that we're working with to make this podcast happen, right? Well, the brain is like that. We're collecting data all day long through all of our senses, and the brain gets overwhelmed with information. And so when we go to sleep, the brain gets active. And during REM, when we're having those crazy, vivid things that we're going to talk about in a few moments, we are also reviewing every single piece of data we've collected during the day, because what the brain is doing overnight is forming short-term memory of the things that are important and just getting rid of all of that extra so that we can wake up the next day and receive some more data. It's kind of like defragmenting your PC, organizing the hard drive so that the PC can function, right? So that's why we are often experiencing daytime stuff in our nighttime phenomena, because we are in fact forming memory in a way that is reflecting the brain's efficiency. It would not function as well if it was just trying to think of all the things that we've received without, cleaning it up. So why we are also connected to this mysterious, collective, universal mind, unconscious realm, multidimensional place is absolutely a mystery. It will always be a mystery. I don't think we can ever solve the mystery of like why we're here and how does this work. The but here, the however is, once you've spent some time in that realm, it's sort of hard to deny the power of these unconscious visits. We are changed by our dreams. I've seen, I've been hearing dreams my whole life. I'm 60 years old. So it's not like I haven't heard thousands of people over the years telling me that their life was changed by certain dream experiences that they had. As part of what the book is about that I'm sort of plugging right now is about the more mystical aspects of it. So the fundamental, like, why do we dream is a question we don't really know the answer to. Psychology will tell us that we're processing fears, limits, rage, grief, all of the shadowy stuff that we have to deal with as human beings. We're more comfortable in those realms when we're asleep. And in fact, I do believe the world of psychology believes that when we visit those scary places in nightmares, we're actually helping ourselves be better human beings by showing up to life when we're awake and processing all of the ways that we are frightened of life so that we can wake up on a Tuesday and do it all over again.
Okay, so here's a big question. I'm, coding the data from the day into memory. Why are my dreams per se not the same necessarily autobiographical images or narrative as the day? Where do symbols and other, images start to occur within that?
So let's talk about the collective unconscious. That was Jung's phrase for the idea that we're all connected and we share a mind that is below the surface of our conscious awareness. We, of course, relate to our conscious awareness as all that in a bag of chips. Like, I am what I think and who I am, and you and I are separate. But we know that we're not separate. We are connected more than we are separate, and that's also part of the mystery.
We are all dancing in the quantum field.
That is exactly right. And I love actually that you even brought up the quantum field, because like as a spiritual teacher and a person who believes deeply in the connection to a greater power, I might use the word God to describe that, but quantum physics describes my relationship with the divine much better than any religiosity would.
Yeah.
So we have to start with this idea that there is a collective, whether you call it the collective consciousness of Jung or a more sort of modern shamanistic term like universal mind, where all of our creativity comes from, all of our connected sensibility, and all of those frightening things that are part of our humanity is in there. So in order to believe that there's something happening in our dream state that's human and existential and powerful, you have to accept the presence of we are all connected through this collective place. Our thinking mind keeps us from being able to perceive that more readily so that we don't bump into the furniture. Right? That's why we, orient ourselves to I'm separate than you so that we don't mess each other up as we're occupying the same space. But that goes to sleep when we go into the dream state. So ipso facto, if there's a universal mind to connect with and the waking mind keeps us from perceiving it, when we go into sleep, that mind that separates us is not present. We feel connected to the universal mind.
Are you saying that while we're sleeping and I'm coding the stimulus of the day, you're intruding and you're adding to my coding and all the images, and so it's just like a hodgepodge, a big old collective soup of images and data that's also being organized?
That's a great way of describing it. I actually loved your language. There was some precision there. So let's just say yes.
Okay.
That yes, there's this other thing happening and intrusive and curious and simultaneous. And what I would then say back to you is, we don't need to pay attention to the coding of memory because it doesn't need any help from us. But if we're also being exposed to a realm of our psyche that we can't meet while we are awake, but that is powerful and existential, then it makes sense to look at our dreams as something sacred and interesting that happens inside of us. And that's the first sort of tenet of working with your dreams, is just to respect that they occur. And isn't that curious? Let's pay attention.
Okay, riddle me this. My sister lives in Australia, but I'm in the United States. And so we're never really sleeping at the same time. Are we sharing a universal mind in our sleep? I mean, I kind of want us to. I'm a little sad that we're not.
Well, I mean, in my world, Scott, absolutely, unequivocally, without question, because the universal mind that we're talking about transcends our experience of time. So you would naturally see your sister as in a separate experience because while you're awake, she's asleep. I would posit that, no, we're all deeply connected to this universality, irrespective of when we're sleeping and waking. And in fact, I would even say there's something elegant about your family lineage is just always connected to the universal. She's holding it half the day. You're holding it half the day. I mean, I'm being silly and flippant, obviously. But yeah, we are connected to each other through this collective, whether or not we're, where we are in time.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. All right. So we've learned about the pooping. We've learned about the quantum field. What are the different ways in which dreams show up? So is this where we get to now enter into the world of like interpretation, or is there still more we need to get to before the fun stuff?
No, I think we're actually at a place where we're talking about standard dreaming. Like we're not having a conversation yet about the mystical possibilities that happen in the dream state. We're just talking about I go to sleep, I have a crazy dream, I wake up. So let me start with this idea that we as individuals have this tiny little conscious awareness that is like me. I am me. Hi. We think it's everything because it's us, but it's ultimately tiny in relationship to this collective, place. So we go into that dream state, whatever we're going to define it as, it's the bigger part of us. And so there's something powerful, I think, about going into a place that's mysterious, not accessible to us while we're awake, but that we accept is a powerful driver of all we do. Back to the world of psychology. We believe in psychology that most behavior is coming from unconscious places. We think we know why we're doing something, but ultimately we don't. And we're being driven much more by our wounds and our fears than we would maybe like to believe. But our dream life takes us to that more raw material place where we're not so limited by trying to keep it all together and what we, who we think we are. So just having a dream is like visiting the invisible part of you, and you're more integrated on a Tuesday than you were on a Monday because you have visited your mysterious places. And I would posit that the value of that is happening whether you remember your dream or not.
Well, I can't remember who wrote Theater of Consciousness, but where he talks about that and that like gives the clarity of percentage. Like, look, we remember about 4 to 6%. We are aware about 4 to 6% of what is happening in our being. Being could be extended beyond just our body. But there is about 94, 96% of other things happening that we are not aware of at any time. And it sounds like what you're saying is like dreams start to dive into that other 90%. 90.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. In fact, I would say if we could do it, which we can't because we are beings of conscious awareness, in that state, when we are asleep and we're in that dream landscape, whatever it is, I would say we are completely in the 96% or whatever it is. It's just that we don't get to take much back with us when we wake up and return, which is why I think being conscious of the dream, I don't know that it makes you like a better human, but I think that you can use dreams and developing a relationship with your dreams to have a richer experience of growth and maturity through life, because you are readily acknowledging that there's this part of you that's dipping into fearful places that want your attention.
Yeah. So like if I have this other friend who isn't great at relations. I have so many friends. Get jelly. and this friend / most of us is like has these things that when we come up in intimate relationships is essentially being destructive, is not allowing us to have ease. And it's like our wounded child is in the driver's seat unbeknownst to us. And what I hear you saying is like dreams can help us get in the car with that young wounded child and work that shit out.
Yes, I'm loving your imagery and your analogy. That is perfect because yes, our wounded child is driving the car. In fact, in relationship, there's always like 6 people in the room. There's the 2 who are trying to engage, and then there's your mommy and daddy, my mommy and daddy, and they're fighting.
Yeah. That just got weird, but I'm here for it. Yes.
Yeah. So I believe that when we go into the dream state, we are having a healing experience. We all die wiser than we were born. And some people more than others, right? People who pay attention to that wounded stuff, right? Who says, I don't want my child to be driving the car. I want to be in the driver's seat. We do whatever we do. It's, therapy and journaling and spiritual work and shame classes and blah, 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 and dream work. That is a richer life is available when you are aware that wounds are driving the car and that healing them is actually within our capability.
Yeah.
And I think that because dreams take us right to the place where we are most frightened, that being in relationship with those images, even if they don't make sense, even if it's irrational, even if you might not be able to air quotes interpret the dream, just by honoring that you're having a dream makes the wisdom that I'm talking about richer from Monday to Tuesday than it would otherwise be.
I love that. So if dreams hold this wisdom to it, how do we start to access that? And how important is it for the understanding and interpretation of it?
Well, that's the $1 million question.
Oh, okay.
How, well, because I walk around the world and I have for decades offering an experience of you tell me your dream and I'm going to tell you a story about the dream that's going to make your eyes go a little wide and have you say something like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Right. And I trust that because I've had that experience thousands and thousands of times. The problem with this, Scott, is that then people think that a successful interpretation of a dream must be that you get to the profound sense of, I understand exactly what this dream means. And that is not at all accurate to describe the value of this dream. That's why I said a few minutes ago, this is happening to the person who never remembers their dreams. They are wiser than they were the day before because of this visit, even if they're unconscious of it. So I have this hierarchy that I describe, that dreams are working all by themselves. They don't need your help. You're good. Just remembering a dream amplifies the juiciness of what's possible to have a conscious awareness of your unconscious material. Writing it down amplifies that even more because now you're codifying it with your conscious awareness, and now it's more solid. And so that increases the dance between conscious mind and unconscious awareness. Sharing it with another person, even casually with a friend, takes it to even a higher level. Now the dream is like getting excited.
It's super juicy.
Dreams are like 8-year-old children. Yeah, it's like an 8-year-old child at the pool diving in going, Ma, look! And mom's bored as fuck, but she looks, right? Because the 8-year-old child just wants to be watched. And I think our fearful sort of patterns want to be seen. They want to be seen. The final sort of most juicy thing you can do in response to a dream is creative. Draw it. Write a poem about it. Dance around your living room, acting it out. See, the unconscious is communicating to us in dreams, only it doesn't know language. It speaks in symbol. The unconscious is a world of symbol. We, as conscious aware beings, have turned that symbol language into literal language so that we can communicate with each other. But how we understand everything is in this symbolic nature. Language and is a function of separate human beings trying to figure out how to deal with each other. But so when we respond to the unconscious creatively, now we're talking its language. So if somebody's having a persistent nightmare, I might say, draw the image of the nightmare. And that usually shifts something about how the nightmare shows up.
I love that because I think there is something to speaking it and transmitting it through a secondary language that loses some of the potency. It's the same thing like from a somatic perspective or like there's a body experience. The moment we put language to it, it becomes not that. It becomes representative of that. And it's important to recognize that it's, when we put a secondary language on it, that it's meant to be a stepping stone back into contact with the original experience or language. So I love that you're referring to like, get back to the language of dreams. Get back to the way that dreams express themselves through your body, through art, through creativity, because that is the language of symbol is the language of dreams, not words.
Yeah, that is absolutely right. And I think making that sort of correlation to like a somatic experience where your body might be expressing a sensation that is actually an emotional pattern just showing up, but not with your rational mind. The language is sensation. So somatic healing, which obviously you know a lot about, deals with the sensation as the identifier of, oh, here's the thing. It's showing up as a tightness in my chest and a pressure over here. And by honoring that, you start to speak its language and you release a wound. The truth is, I love interpreting dreams so profoundly that it is a function of being in friendship with me that the inner circle could call me up anytime that they want.
I want to take a moment to give a loud shout out to the Embody Lab, which is one of the most incredible resources for body-based and somatic therapies. This show is all about healing, and the Embody Lab does exactly that. Whether you're on your own journey of transformation and discovery, or enhancing your skill sets in your career as like a coach or a therapist, a body worker, or really any career where you are supporting other gently used humans, the Embody Lab is your place for deep, inspiring, and impactful workshops, certificates, masterclasses, and an incredible community of like-minded folks. I love the Embody Lab, and so do so many other people that call it a platform to come home to over and over again. The Embody Lab is giving my listeners an exclusive offer, a one-time 10% off code to enhance your embodied well-being. All you have to do is go to theembodylab.com and use the code GentlyUse10 at checkout. Are you open to doing a little dream whispering right now with some people who wrote in about their
Absolutely,
dreams? Okay,
100%.
and then we'll go back to the other
100%.
aspects of dreams. But we're in the realm of
Sure.
interpretation, so let's dive into
Yes, we are.
the language of symbol. This dream was shared, and I won't say their name, but they said, I have a reoccurring dream where I walk around a house and keep finding new rooms, and I get really excited about decorating them. Then I realized that they connect to someone else's house, usually a rental house, and a bunch of people I don't like in it. That is a fucking layered dream. And first of all, I love that how excited they are about decorating. I want to invite that person over to my house.
Fabulous. So this is actually a recurring dream theme that is shared by lots and lots of people.
Wow.
I call it the sort of unexpected resource dream. So let's start with what we're dreaming about anytime we're in a dream of a home, a house, an apartment, even a motel or a hotel. It carries this, but on a temporary basis because we don't inhabit those for long. So a house in a dream is about the self. Right? Our houses reflect us so much that in the dreamland, when we dream of a house, the psyche is saying we're in consideration of like who you are and how you think of yourself. So the finding the new rooms is about discovering resource, access to more intelligence, things about like growing and learning that show up through life, right? So if I think of myself as a 4-bedroom house and then suddenly it's a 6-bedroom house, I got bigger. So bigger in my consciousness, bigger in my awareness, bigger in my self-knowledge by discovering. It's just like, in waking life, you have a crisis and you're like, oh, I'm not going to be able to meet this crisis. And then you do, and you've learned something about resilience and expansion and you get bigger. So the same thing in one of these dreams. What I love about this added, and you said there's layers, because the minute we're in the territory of there were people in these new rooms that I didn't like, well, this is the dreamer's dream, right? These people aren't other people. So whenever there's a lot of people show up in an environment, I would usually liken that to thoughts the person is having. So it's like if I expand my consciousness, that's a good thing, but I might also be getting in touch with thoughts that are problematic or invasive or get in my way. These people I don't like. That would be akin to saying I have thoughts that I don't like as I'm trying to expand and grow. And by the way, we have even another little layer, this little that the dream is showing them connecting to someone else's house could be adding a layer of, as I seek to expand who I am and I interact with others, I find that I do in fact have more resource than I knew, but I'm not always crazy about, the thoughts and stuff that come up as I'm trying to connect to other people.
Okay. I can't wait for that person to share with us how that resonates. I mean, we'll have to find out after the show comes out. Let's do a few more. This is fun. Now, okay, someone else shared a similar dream. So it's a variation of the theme. So it's like walking around a house So we could say walking around themselves, I guess.
Right. Walking around
Myself,
considering
as
self.
one does. And I want to take a bath, but all the bathtubs are filled with water. I assume that means like,
Wow.
yeah. I mean, personally, that sounds great. Take that bath. It's filled for you.
Well, but the story of the dream says there's a no that shows up because they're filled with water already. So yes, we are in consideration of self. I'm walking around myself to have.
Yeah.
Now we got to go into the consciousness of the room.
Mm-hmm.
The bathroom is a really interesting room in the house because it's the most private.
Mm-hmm.
It's the one where we can close the door and be with our completeness. There's a mirror in the bathroom, so we're really with a reflection of self.
Mm-hmm.
We're naked in the bathroom, so we're our most vulnerable. Back to the theme of poop. We're pooping in bathrooms, and everybody's a little ashamed of their poop and poopy smell. So bathroom in a dream becomes a symbol of the aspect of self where I am fully in and comfortable to whatever extent one is with my full self, including my shame.
Mm.
That's the important piece of bathroom is I'm individuated. I know who I am. I've closed the door and I can be with my most shameful places. So then we got to then think, well, what do we do in a bath? We're purifying. We're cleansing in a bath. We fill up the water. We get into the water. We clean ourselves and then we let the water drain away. So bath and bathing as a symbol is a beautiful symbol of purification and cleansing.
Mm.
But in order for that to be met directly, the bath has to be empty.
Mm-hmm.
If you walk into a bathroom and it's full of water, it's like, has it been bathed in?
Mm-hmm.
Is it somebody else's dirty water? I mean, I'm making these things up. These aren't in the dream. I'm trying to sort of point out that it makes some sense that the dreamer hits a no when the bathtubs are filled with water. It's like, that's not for me.
That's not for me.
So that could be a moment of a person who's carrying around a bit of toxicity because of circumstance.
They're not brain pooping enough.
But
is that what you mean?
right. They're not cleansing up. The dream
yeah.
is showing them that there's some self-care, cleansing, releasing of stuff that at the moment can't be available to the dreamer. And so then the dream is a snapshot of that. And then I would say that dreamer then can wake up the next day and meet the stress that the circumstances of their life might be giving them at that particular time.
All right. Let's do one more, and then I want to dive into some more details about how it is we learn interpretation. So let's do this one. This is interesting. There's a couple ones where I'm like, that sounds like an LSD trip, which might be some information there. This one says, I'm climbing a regular tree. Interesting. Branches turn to me slowly, revealing parrots in camouflage.
So climbing, I'm not sure what an irregular
I know, I was
going to
say that.
Because I was expecting I suppose the branches suddenly moving is irregular, right? So the dream starts out as
like a tree that's not alive.
Right, or not moving like that. So if we're climbing a regular tree, if we're climbing a tree, we're in some consideration of growth through life. Trees are often about that because they replicate what it is to be grounded and have roots, to have a strong center, and to have branches that connect with others. There's the idea of the family tree, the tree of life in Kabbalistic mysticism. Trees are everywhere in the human psyche as reflecting growth through life. So climbing the branches, climbing the tree could be a symbol of this dreamer considering getting a higher in vantage point, growing, climbing up the tree would be akin to getting older, getting wiser, getting more mature, healing wounds, being more integrated. And I love that the branches turn slowly toward the dreamer because that sort of says, I'm working with you. I'm going to show you something important. And the important thing that's being shown is parrots in camouflage.
As one does.
As one does. You never know. So what do we think about parrots? Everybody understands parrots as the talking, mimicking birds. that if we then examine that more closely, we would collectively, as a human, collective, we would sort of think of parroting as low level sort of communication consciousness, right? If I'm parroting, it means I don't own it. I'm just repeating. It's not real. It has no gravitas. It's a lot of bullshit. So everything inside a dream is to be considered a pattern or thought forms of the dreamer. And so in this consideration of growth through life, there are moments when thought forms are just parroted pieces of ideas that aren't real or organic, like tropes that exist out there or conspiracy theories or other whatever. But they're in camouflage, which means the dreamer is noticing that there are ways that thoughts that exist inside of them are actually just parroted notions that they've borrowed from others, from society, from their family of origin, and they don't know it readily because they're camouflaged as perhaps vibrant, powerful, important thoughts that might not really be juicy, gravitas oriented or fully owned by the dreamer.
Love it. Love it. Get it. Michael, how does one even learn this art form? Because I mean, I could try my best, but I would just come up with some snarky interpretation. Let's be real. That's not probably very helpful. I remember patients coming into my office and they're like, I had this dream and I'd love for us to interpret it. And I remember just freezing. I'm like, I didn't have this in school. Like, this is not something I actually learned.
And you don't because you're trained not to very definitively. In fact, I went to grad school in my mid to late 30s. So it wasn't like I started as a young person becoming a psychotherapist. I was just like, I got to reinvent my life and I want to incorporate being a spiritual teacher in the world, but I want to know more about the human psyche from a higher level. So education was part of that. And in grad school, I was told, people would say, other students would be saying, we're trained not to interpret dreams. And I would look at them and go, yeah, you shouldn't.
Ouch.
But here's why. I first of all, I don't know that I ever did that. It was hopefully me just being funny. If I did that ever, I hope it was well received as cute and funny. The reason why therapists are trained not to interpret dreams in the way that I do is because of what we call projection. Yeah. Everybody knows about projection these days because it's happening in the political landscape on an outrageous level where people say things that really are reflecting stuff that they're doing or frightened by, and that's projection. So projection in dream world would be like you have a dream that involves your mother.
Yeah.
And I decide to interpret that this dream must be something about ADHD and personality disorders and violence and trauma because that describes my mother.
Yes.
So this is natural and organic. It's called relationships, really. We project all over each other. And when we're in successful relationships, I'm talking about friendships, interactions, acquaintances, and lovers, all of it, that a good relationship is one where we're somehow respecting that this projection thing is going on. And through conversation, we have better. Anyway, so in the world of dream interpretation, it's so easy to project your own stuff as you're hearing a dream. And I don't know why I don't do that, but it lives in me to not do that as like a gift. I can hear a dream, and this I could do as a teenager. This wasn't something that I learned how to do. It was built into me that I had this intuitive way of hearing a dream and not adding my stuff to it. What I learned eventually when I started to look at how I was interpreting dreams after having done it for 20 years or so was this idea that dreams are stories. The language of the stories are the symbols, which we've talked about, and that each symbol has a meaning that's universal. And how that's established is by what the thing is or does, what's its use, its essence, if it's an animal, what its qualities are, how it behaves in the world, right? So I just picked up a pencil on my desk. So if I have a dream that includes a pencil, everybody in the world would agree that this is a writing implement.
Yeah.
They might also secondarily agree that it's temporary. It's erasable.
Yeah.
So the pencil dream where the pencil is broken, then the dream is about my ability to communicate effectively, even if temporarily, is hindered.
Mm.
So did you agree that a pencil might symbolically mean expression in a dream because of what it does? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, when you say it, I think I probably would have froze if you were a patient coming in and said I had a dream I ate a pencil or some shit like that. I'd be like,
right. But you can't refute what I'm presenting to you, that most people in the world would recognize this as a thing that writes.
Yeah, as a form of,
it's symbolic meaning that's universal.
Yeah.
Right. So my gift is not that I know something that you don't know. It's that my brain works so fast that I'm doing this while I'm hearing you tell the dream. There's a part of my mind that's able to hear what you're telling me, intuitively process it at lightning speed, and immediately have a story to tell you about what the dream means, because that's what I'm doing. In fact, these days I have to type out the notes because my mind is just not as sharp as it was. When I was younger, I could remember a long dream without writing the fucking notes down. But now I got to write
Welcome to your
down.
40s, Michael.
That's right. That's right. So what I'm doing when I'm interpreting the dream is I'm just telling a story about the story, jumping from universality.
Well, it sounds like you're like part of being a dream whisperer, which I'm calling this episode right now.
Love it.
It sounds very like sweet. Being able to be in the in-between space between symbol and ways that we have to language it to describe it, and then back to symbol.
Yes. Ooh, I love your language is such a turn on. You've got great analogy, which is so valuable, I think, to help understanding. I think analogy is a great way to understand. You know, if there is this universal mind that we keep talking about, and then this conscious awareness mind, I am someone who has a perceived connection to that unconscious realm while I'm awake.
Yeah.
So we would call that intuitive, or, I never refer to myself as psychic because I don't feel that gift, although things come out of my mouth sometimes that are in that direction, but it's innocent. It's not something I can tap into in a specific way. So I think that what makes me good at being a dream whisperer is that there's a part of me in my conscious awareness that's able to feel into unconscious material in a way that I don't understand. It's a mystery, but I know that it happens.
I can really resonate because in the same way that you did that, when someone comes in the room, I hear the story of their body, and so like I appreciate it. I hear the unconscious patterns. I hear the unexpressed impulses. I see them.
That's right.
I experience them.
That's right.
But when it comes to dreams, I got no fucking idea what people are talking about.
Right. But listen, where you have that level of expertise, it is a function of what we're describing. Your conscious awareness is in your room, but your unconscious is feeling, seeing their body. I'll bet you can know, not maybe consciously, but you know how your client or patient, whatever you call them, is breathing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so they stop breathing when you start talking about something intense, and it's like you're intuitively aware of that, and it helps you contain the space more powerfully.
Yeah. I also know when they're lying.
For their benefit. So the same thing is happening that you're doing in that way, I'm doing in the
exactly.
dream.
I want to do one more dream interpretation.
Sure.
And then we're going to dive in to some of the material on the land of dreams. So this one is about venomous spiders are showing up everywhere in my dreams and in real life.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I love the bleed of waking life and sleeping life. We call that a waking dream.
That's
that when something happens in our waking life that's interesting and unusual, it can be beheld as a kind of dream, consciousness. What does it mean that spiders are showing up both in sleep and waking? So when we look at spiders, we go to how do they behave? What do they do?
Yeah.
So they have a medicine that connects to powerful creative endeavors, right? That web, that incredible thing that they do means that they embody something about our primal ability to create. But their creation is for a purpose. It's to collect food. And what does the spider do after it has spun its web? It just goes to the corner and it patiently waits, knowing and trusting that their meal is on its way because they've created the structure that will attract abundance and prosperity and all of the yummy symbolic things of bounty, right? So it's the patience of the person, spider, patience and profound preparation that is spider medicine. So if someone is dreaming a lot of spiders and having spiders in waking life, it's absolutely about that tapping into that my creative work has preceded me. I can be patient as I wait. But the venomous piece adds that it's difficult or toxic or that there's other scary feeling, thoughts, fear stuff that's coming up about perhaps how long it's taking to, wait for the thing that might be coming.
Okay. Now, it's interesting we talked about that aspect of it, but is it also that it could be a prediction, like a precognitive kind of, like I'm having this dream and it's telling me about what's to come? Is that a possibility?
Well, that's a fabulous question. So let me say this about that. A precognitive dream, as I would sort of codify them and talk about them, is definitely a dream that has images that will happen in waking life. Right? So from that definition of what a precognitive dream is, it's only precognitive from the perspective that it's showing up in waking life.
Okay.
So absolutely, there could be a way in which the dream and the waking life presence of spiders is sort of reflecting each other in a manner that we would call intuitive or sort of psychic. Absolutely.
Is that like dream deja vu experience a lot of us have of like, I think this feels familiar, like I might have even dreamed it?
Absolutely. In fact, I would call that the sort of lowest level way that precognitive dreams can show up for people are these sort of very simple, sort of scenario driven. Oh, this feels familiar. I'm walking down the grocery store and I stop in front of the soup and I'm like, God, I think this was in a dream. So at the very lowest level of the way dreams can tap into material that has not happened yet, yeah, we could call that something like a precognitive dream. And we have them.
I had one of those yesterday where I was walking down the street and I was like, this feels like I've been here before. And I was like, I kind of remember it as a dream from a few years ago. Is it, or is precognitive dreams much like closer in quote unquote time?
Well, let's talk about the phenomena rather than the structural result.
Okay.
Meaning the phenomena is that when the rational mind, that is the one that we sort of listen to all the time as us, that's designed to keep us safe, like look both ways when you cross the street, put on a sweater because it got cold. If that mind is asleep, then we are free in our dream state to have perceptions that transcend time. So that's a possibility because the perception that keeps us from those intuitive trans-time perception experiences is the rational mind that might hear the still small voice but dismiss it as irrelevant. And so because that limiting mind is not awake and active during the dream state, every human being is more likely to have the potential for experiencing and perceiving things that have not shown up in time. So then by understanding that structure, then it's less about, well, does that fit the model of a precognitive dream or is that a precognitive dream? It's like all dreams can be precognitive, but there are people who experience this more readily where it's almost literal, where they'll have a dream of something and then 4 days later it shows up and it's not like, oh, vaguely this feels familiar. It's like, nope, I dreamt about this 4 days ago and here I am.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I got that. Thank you for breaking that down. That's really helpful. This show is also brought to you by the absolutely stunning and powerful tools of transformation that are created by Omala. Oof, even the name Omala transports you to a place of flow and vitality. These are some of my favorite products ever. They have an amazing color-changing yoga mat that responds to your temperature and presence and reflects back your posture in real time. There's this incredible smelling skin balm candle that heats up to activate all the essential oils and vitamins that your skin has been craving. I mean, look, if I could live in a giant bath of this candle, I would 100% do it. They also have these journals that lead you into profound insight, and then you get to plant those journals to create a stunning flower garden. What? I mean, if that's not deep and inventive, I don't know what is. If you're someone who desires to live a luxurious flow of life and who believes in transformative wellness, then you have to check out Omala. Omala is giving my listeners an exclusive discount to treat yourself to something that is as special as you, boo. All you have to do is go to omala.com, that's OMALA.com, and use the code DrScott10 at checkout. And a portion of every purchase goes to an incredible charity. You got this. There's something, and you write about it in your new book, Psychic Dreamer, exploring the relationship between dreams and intuition. And I have this like personal desire to be the conqueror of my dreams. And I think they call that like lucid dreaming or something like that, where it's like I have actual agency of my dreams.
Agency, control.
I love control, Michael. It turns me on. Tell me about how I get more control of my dreams.
Yeah, good information to have, Scott. Everybody has had at least once the experience of being in a dream and having the thought in the dream space, I think I'm dreaming. Right? That's the sort of the bottom of the wheel of that idea that what's possible, though, in the dream state in terms of lucidity is that can show up as even greater, as you sort of describe it, as the ability to be in some agency with dreams and some control. So some people who develop their ability to lucid dream can routinely go back to sleep and join a dream that they just came out of. Which is attractive for a lot of people. Yeah. It's possible to have intentions of juicy things that can happen inside of a dream state by working with the intention to have it happen. There's lots of books on lucid dreaming to encourage it. There's, and if you live in the right places, there's workshops and classes on it because I think people covet the experience. Yeah. So I had a top of the wheel lucid. I don't chase lucid dreaming. It was never something that was like, oh, I'm gonna work on that. Yes, I sometimes have envy when I hear people who have, outrageous lucid experiences because they just sound fun. I had a lucid dream about 7 or 8 years ago that was just me sitting on my couch. That was the dream. Only I was as awake as I am right now. Okay. Fully present, fully cogent, fully conscious, and speaking out loud to myself, holy shit, I'm asleep. I'm asleep in that bedroom right over there, and I'm dreaming. I can't believe this. I'll tell you that experience, Scott, was worth being born.
Why? What about it?
Because everything about my life has been sought to have a relationship with the mystery that we're in at the highest level that my embodiment is capable of experiencing it. Okay. So from the get-go, it was about healing the wounds, clearing out the trauma, coveting an experience of co-creation with this universal mind that's the bigger part of us. And so that moment was kind of bigger than a plant medicine moment that was crazy or other, I've had the experiences that sort of are concomitant with the life I've led. Wow. But that one in particular was, it just ripped the fabric of limit off my psyche because I was so awake, Scott. I'm telling you, it was 100% like being fully awake. And it was just sort of that moment of like, oh, wow, all of this stuff, whatever it is, it's real. Even if it's a mystery that can't quite ever be explained.
I love that. And I think there's something about like, I don't know. I mean, that sounds such like a spiritual moment to be able to have control in the chaos of like the quantum,
Yes.
field or the unconscious.
Definitely. Yes.
Wow. Yeah, I'm down for it.
So there's this really interesting thing about how lucid dreaming is thought to be able to be amplified.
Okay.
And the process of short-term memory formation.
Okay.
And this I find very interesting and fun. If you Google how to lucid dream more, you're probably going to come upon an article or a thing talking about look at your hands while you're awake.
Okay.
And that's the sort of first exercise. And it's like all day long, forever. So it's not like you do it twice. It's like all day long, you hold your hands up in front of your face and you look at them, do it 20, 30, 40 times every day for weeks and weeks. And eventually, because your brain is reviewing the day in REM sleep, eventually that image will show up in your dream because you're flooding your awake mind with that image. That when you're processing the day, eventually it's going to show up, and that's going to trigger inside the dreamer an awareness of lucidity that's been cultivated.
It's a hypnotic image
by the dreamer.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's a hypnotic suggestion.
Yeah, hypnotic suggestion. Be aware of, like, attend to.
So the idea would be that over time, by doing this act that allows you to trigger the lucidity in your dream state, I would think that one would also be well served by having a meditative practice during the waking life so that you're living in a clearer mind than one who's not doing meditation, that there's intention setting that's part of this, that isn't just a February thing, but a lifestyle thing. And then that empowers a person to develop the muscle of being more aware in the dream state with some conscious, awareness that we call lucidity. And that person might be able to return to a dream, order up a dream, have a richer experience of what happens in the dream.
Yeah, I think about it now too as like more than just the sexiness of control inside the sort of realm of symbol.
Yes.
But I think like, oh my gosh, anything can happen in a dream. You can fly, you can be whoever you are, you can transform, you can transmute. And to have agency within that creative freedom space where anything is possible, like that's really amazing.
And now translate that to being able to live in your waking life, trusting the same amount of creative power, the same amount of agency, the same amount of ability to anything can happen inside of this chaotic environment, and I'm the creator. In dreams, we're not inhibited by that at all. And the person who's paying attention to their dreams knows that more in their waking life and is better, I think, at managing the chaos of our world and staying creative and powerful and filled with agency within that.
I love that. I'm going to start doing that here. I'm going to stop the podcast to look at my hands.
That's right. He's going to look at his hands.
I've actually had quite a few lucid dreams. I used to have this reoccurring dream about my mom passing in a very violent way, like on a frying pan. Wow. And after a few years of having that dream, like continuously coming back, and I remember stopping the dream, like pushing like a pause button on the remote and saying, actually, this isn't happening. Because I called her enough after these dreams to know that that's not what's happening in the moment. And and like, it was like this big power to be able to say, stop, this isn't okay for me. And this isn't what's happening. Like, and whatever else needs to process and happen underneath this, like, it was almost like going underneath the hood of the violence of the dream to attend to the emotional like experience that needs to be attended to.
Yeah, wow, that's powerful. Frying
Yeah,
pan? She died in a frying pan?
in the dream.
Well, that can kill you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's interesting because frying pan implies a relationship to cooking, which then implies a relationship to nurturing and sustenance, the first source of which was our mothers.
Yeah.
Right. And so you took a fearful consciousness that was having its way with you and you got bigger.
Yeah.
You got bigger than the thought form of mom's in trouble, and then it transformed.
Yeah. And as we're talking about it, I also remember not just hitting the pause button, but the reverse button and saying, this isn't what's happening, and reversing the dream back to where she's off the frying pan and is safe.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's sophisticated. That's real lucid dream work.
I'm a sophisticated lady.
Fabulous.
Speaking of sophistication, I want to get down and dirty with another aspects of Dreamland, which is like the erogenous dream zone, like the hanky panky, the things that occur internal and sometimes have an external expression to them while we're dreaming. Tell me about it.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Eroticism and the body and sex and sexuality is an enormous part of our humanity. Talk about the child driving the car too. When we're in our, sexual, erotic sort of consciousness, we're also in a really primal, part of our psyche. Yeah. So the thing I think to keep in mind with dreams that include erotic imagery is to go to the symbolic meaning behind sex, which is much more about integration and union than actual putting together of body parts. But this sort of fits the idea that in dreams and dream interpretation, we're looking at the meta, not the actual. So if two people have intercourse in waking life, that is driven by the body, driven by the eros in the body. But in symbolism land, the first thing we're going to look at is what's being called forth that needs to be stimulated or integrated in order to serve you at this time. So then sex dreams don't always mean anything about sex. Now, my favorite story to tell about this happened years ago.
Tell me this story.
But I've told this story thousands of times because it's just so accurate. It's not a very fun or sexy story. It actually takes it away.
Oh, boo.
A woman had a dream about having sex with a coworker that she was horrified to have had such a dream about. But remember, the dream landscape is the dreamer's domain. So that person wasn't really that person. It wasn't his dream. It was hers. So upon investigation, we discovered that this is a woman who was about to have to give a presentation in her work environment, and she's not a public speaker. This guy was. He was in sales. He had the snappy patter, quick speaking. So sex then becomes an integration of that quality in her. She went and found the part of herself that was capable of speaking publicly, that was beautifully represented by the image of that man, because he does that in the waking world. By having sex with him in the dream, she's incorporating that psyche that's maybe in the basement into her readiness to then inhabit her ability to speak to the best of her ability when that happens. Suddenly the shame and the disgust of the dream goes away because it's not really about sex, it's about integration.
How do we know that he's not riding through the quantum field in his dream and getting his interest inside her dream?
We don't. That's the beauty of it all.
I want some
the beauty
dream
of it all is
boundaries.
we don't know nothing about none of this. And so it's all open for interpretation.
Michael, how do we have dream boundaries? Which is your next book. You're welcome.
I don't know. I guess I I don't know. I don't have an answer to that question.
I mean, I had a teacher in one of my programs I did many years ago who talked she didn't phrase it as dream boundaries, but she just said like ways of really protecting yourself in dreams from like, because we might be, and her experience was there's more openness, there's more vulnerability. And for her, she was really about like drawing an imaginary line around you, and to say like only what is really important and needs to teach me can come in, like that sort of intentionality.
Yeah,
I don't
right,
know if
yeah.
that resonates for you.
Well, I'll say where this resonates for me is I certainly respect that as something to do while awake, right? That living openly as I do also requires a lot of protection.
Yeah.
Like I have to live a kind of protected life so that I can stay as sensitive and open as I need to do the work that lights me up. So from that perspective, I think I love everything that you said. The only thing that I would sort of hold on the other side of that is, as long as that idea isn't being inhabited as a fearful, I'm in danger consciousness, that if I don't do this, I'm going to be in trouble, because I don't think that that's accurate. But I wouldn't not protect myself energetically in my waking life. So while it might not occur to me to have postulated what you just shared, I absolutely, it's like, yeah, that's a thing. Because just because we're asleep doesn't mean we've been turned off. I think that's a misnomer. This idea that, we're awake when we're awake, and when we're asleep, we're just sort of like on the off switch. The only thing that's not present is the mind that we think with is quiet. Otherwise, we are fully energetically present. There we are. We're just in rest.
Yeah. I can see how Friday the 13th might have fucked some people up in terms of how scary sleep can be and dreams can be.
Yes, absolutely. And what a perfect trope to present as, terrifying on a universal level, because, you see that movie and it's like, oh God, everybody sleeps in dreams, and there Freddy is ready and waiting.
There are some movies from the 80s and 90s that will forever scar and keep most of us psychologists in practice, like Jaws and Freddy or Friday the 13th. You know what I mean? Or Arachnophobia. Those movies are like, I just feel like they should be banned. Like, I haven't met very many people who haven't been fucked up by them.
You can clock somebody's age by their recurring dream symbols. Right? Yeah. Like, if you're under 30, it's going to be zombies and vampires. Right? Because that's proliferated media in the last couple of decades. So you're absolutely right. And in fact, when I hear somebody who has a very specific recurring nightmare dream, it almost always has to point to, well, you saw something on TV that freaked you out, that your little boy or little girl psyche dreamed of, because it was scary. And then your brain went, ooh, this is a good image to reflect that level of fear. And now you're going to dream about that image for the rest of your life because of a movie you watched at 8 years old.
Thank you, Steven Spielberg. If you're listening, fuck you. I hope you're listening. As a way of us kind of coming to a landing in the realm of dreams, in your book, again, as psychic dreamer, exploring the connection between dreams and intuition. And what are some practices in addition to the ones you've offered of just starting to juice up our psychic abilities or our innate practice of joining and listening into the symbolism of dreams?
I think that the practice of going into dreams and respecting them, the practice of that is no different. It's like a cousin of the practice of meditation, right? So anytime I'm going to talk about this idea of deepening your intuitive abilities and incorporating your relationship to dreams as one of those practices, I would then also say, if you're not doing something to quiet the crazy nonstop chatter of the mind while you are awake, how can you be perceiving that? They don't call it the still small voice for nothing. It's still and it's small, and we got to be quiet to hear it. So if you're not putting money in that bank, I don't think you can develop your intuition more powerfully because we got to hear the quieter messages. I think that one of the things that enriches the whole process of the idea that sleep and death are sort of the same thing, that we practice dying when we go to sleep and we re-experience our birth in our waking. And that if we look at that behavioral act unconsciously, then we get nothing out of it. It's just something we have to do. But if we look at it as a kind of ritually driven, fundamental part of what it is to be embodied. And I call this sleep hygiene, that the idea would be that we turn the experience of ending the day and going into that sweet sort of death of sleep, that we do it with conscious awareness. And that, what do they tell you if, you're not sleeping well? They watch the blue light, turn off, no stimulation.
And then they shame
That's
you.
sleep hygiene.
Then they shame you for not sleeping.
Yes, they do. So the idea of respecting the process of going to sleep by giving yourself, even if it's just 20 minutes, right? Where the last 20 minutes isn't done unconsciously, but consciously. Respecting the process of changing your clothes, that the brushing of the teeth becomes a ritual of preparation, that the dream world is likely to give you lots of information. You might ask a question. You might petition your dreams before you go to bed saying, hey, I'm having a struggle with this over here. Let me have a dream that will help, illuminate that. Any waking life increase of the respect that you have for sleeping and dreaming will also signal your unconscious that you want more of that. So now you're working with two muscles, a muscle during the day and a muscle that absolutely takes each embodied human being into a place where the still small voice is all we're hearing because the interrupting voice is asleep, that just being more conscious of that and getting a dream journal and writing those dreams down allows the psyche to say you're interested in that material that is from those below the surface places. My belief is that over time, approaching sleep and dreaming in that way and respecting a meditative practice, your intuition will be richer, clearer, louder, and more helpful to you as you move through life.
Get dreaming, folks. I love that. Thank you, Michael. And it's been such a pleasure to have you on The Gently Used Human. My friend, where can everyone find you and get more of you?
MichaelLennox.com is the website, just my name spelled MichaelLennox.com. I do a lot of social media presence with astrology on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, and you can find those links there. All of the books I've written are linkable there. The classes that I teach and process, and self-investigation and shadow work are listed there. MichaelLennox.com.
And we will go to your website and find all your other socials and your books, and we will invite you into our dreams, you dream whisperer, you. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Michael. Have a beautiful rest of your day. We will tune in with you soon. Thank you for listening to the Gently Used Human podcast with Dr. Scott Lyons and friends. Visit gentlyused.com for fun extras, including submitting your questions for advice from a Midwestern mom. And don't forget to spill the tea and gossip about the show with all your friends and frenemies. And you know what? Show us some love by giving us 5 stars and leaving a review in your favorite apps. This helps us connect with all the other gently used humans out there. Oh, and by the way, you look fierce today.